Welcome back. This is Module 5, Topic 1, Lesson 1, Slicing and Dicing, where we are talking about the area of composite figures. This is Activity 1.1. Let's get started. It says, solve each problem, show your work. Number 1 reads, suppose the carpeting costs, sorry, not 100, $1.20 per square foot. That's important information. I'm going to highlight that now. How much would it cost to carpet every room in the house except the kitchen? So, except the kitchen, I'm not looking at the area for the kitchen. So, I can go ahead and put an X through that. All right, so that means I am finding the area for the dining room, the enclosed porch, and the living room. So now we're applying our knowledge to a real world situation. I'm going to help us get started, and then I'm going to pause us so that you guys can continue working on this problem on your own. So let's first organize our work because that is super important when it comes to geometry. So the first room that we're going to start with, let's just say the dining room. So the dining room, I'm going to shade it in blue. I'm going to do this in blue, the dining room. I know the dining room is a rectangle, so the area is going to be base times height is how I find that. Now I need to actually find the base and the height. So I can see the height is labeled for me. That is 8, the height, times, or instead, let me put a dot. Multiplication, there we go. Times our base, which we don't know what our base is because it's not labeled, but we can figure it out. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight the necessary information I need to figure that out. So I know that the full length from left to right here is 35, and then the full length from here to here is 10. So I'm going to add those. That gives me 45. So I've got 45 is my full length from the left to the right. Now I'm going to subtract, use pink. I'm going to subtract what I do know. So I know that this part is 14. This section is 12, but this section I don't know. So I'm going to take 45, take away 14, take away 12. What number does that get us? That gives us 19. And then when we multiply, we get 152 square feet or feet squared for our dining room. Still not done. We've done one room. Now we have to do 2 more. So let's do our enclosed porch next. Again, keeping my work organized. So we've got the porch. That is a rectangle. So area is equal to base times height. Now let's find those measurements. I can clearly see the top is labeled as 10 and my side is clearly labeled as also 10 feet. So 10 times 10, that's an easy one. What do we get? 100 feet squared. All right, and one last room, which is the living room. Now notice with the living room, that is not a simple shape. What do you think we'd have to do here? I'd agree. Hopefully you said decompose or compose. But for this, I'm going to decompose. That's just me personally, what I feel more comfortable doing. So I'm going to decompose the living room into 2 separate parts, a part A and a part B. So part A for the living room, the area of that square, again, base times height, that is going to equal. So I'm actually going to do my height first. So I see for my heights, I've got 8 feet here, I've got 8 feet here, and I've got 8 feet here. 8 feet, 5 feet, and then 10 feet. So I know the full length is 15 feet because we've got 10 plus 5. And then I'm going to subtract 8 to figure out what this missing side length is. And that's going to give us 7. So 7 times, now we can find our base. So in green, we're looking for this measurement here, which is our base of that smaller living room section. So I know that part of it is 12, and I know that this smaller section, 14, take away this 10, gives me 4. So that would be 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 feet for the base. And that gives us 112 feet squared. Now, are we done? No, we're not, because we have to still find the area of this smaller part of the living room, which is what I labeled B. So the area of B, and I like to draw a square because it helps me remember the shape that I'm finding the area for, is base times height. And that one's pretty simple to see. I can see that the height is 10 and the base is 12. So we've got 10 times 12, which I know is 120 feet squared. Notice how I'm labeling all of my numbers, no naked numbers here. And so now that we easily found the areas of all of those sections, what do you think I would do now? Now it is time to add it all up. Go ahead and add it all up, and your answer is going to pop up on the screen once you are done. Add it all up, take about 1 minute. Set a 1 minute timer. Pause here. So you should have gotten 484 feet total, or total feet squared. Now, the question did not ask us specifically about the area, but they asked us about what? The cost for the carpeting. So each square foot costs $1.20. Go ahead and multiply, because this is what's going to give us our final answer. Go ahead and multiply 484 times $1.20, and that's going to give us our final price. Take about 1 minute. Set a timer. 1 minute. Pause here. All right, and the final answer that you should have gotten was $580.80 for this problem. Now, I hope you've got all of these notes, because the next couple questions you are going to attempt on your own or with a partner or a group. So if you don't, take a second to get the important notes. Whatever you don't get, let's not hold the class up and get it from a neighbor. All right, question number 2 says, suppose a gallon of paint covers about 400 square feet. Now we're talking about paint. How much paint would you need to paint the entire back of this house? So here we have a composite figure that models the back of a house. And the information that it gives us, let's go ahead and highlight that because it is important. A gallon of paint covers 400 square feet. So let's draw that out. 1 gallon of paint probably looks like this. Can cover 400 feet squared. I need to stop using orange. All right, that's a gallon of paint. Now we have to find the area of this composite shape. First, think, what shapes can you break this down into? What shapes do you see? Hopefully you can clearly see the rectangle here, of course. That's probably like the garage or something. And then also we've got another rectangle, and they're kind of off a little bit. This is the main part of the house, and then we've got the roof or upstairs. So we've got 2 rectangles and a triangle here. Now that you've had several examples, so an example here and also an example here on how to find composite area, I want you to go ahead and do this one, like I said, on your own or with a partner, keeping your work organized and making sure that you're writing those formulas. I want you to take about 5 minutes on the clock, about 5 minutes only, to figure out, 1, the composite area of the back of the house, and also 2, how many gallons of paint would you need to cover? All right, 5 minutes on the clock. Pause here. Alrighty, now that you've had time to work, let's go over our answers. Alrighty, compare your work to mine. So notice I went ahead and I solved inside of the house because that was just easier for me on a computer. But if you did it on the outside, totally fine as long as you have a process for organizing your work. So let's start with the garage, the one off to the side, the rectangle in green. So we started with the formula. Formula first. Say it with me. Formula first. All right. So area is equal to base times height. The base was 18 because it's clearly labeled, and the height was 9. We got 162 feet squared. Then for the bigger rectangle, we started with the formula. The base was not clear, but I could see that the full length was 50. And then part of that, actually, let me highlight it so that you can see exactly what I'm referring to in blue. The full length is 50, and part of that is 18 from here to here. So the remainder of the way I know I would subtract, and I figured out that that was 32. I multiplied and got 384 feet squared. And for our triangle, now our triangle we haven't done yet in this lesson, but that's nothing new. I said I was going to get you a reference chart and I forgot, so that is my fault. But here it is if you don't know, write this down. The area of a triangle is found by using A is equal to 1/2 times base times height. An easy way to remember that is just think a triangle is half of a square, or a triangle is half of a rectangle. If you cut it diagonally, it's gonna form a triangle every time. So 1/2 times 32, which is our base, and then times 10, which is our height that was given to us. And I'm going to highlight that in purple as well. Notice our height of the triangle always goes from the top to the bottom, straight down, not the slant height. From top to bottom is our triangle height. And we got 160. When we add those all together, we get 706 squared feet. But that's not what the question asks us. The question asks, how much paint would you need to paint the entire back of this house? So think about it. How many cans or how many gallons of paint would you need? If 1 gallon covers 400 feet, how many cans would you need? Hopefully you said it. 2 gallons would be needed to paint the entire back of the house. Also, a good practice is to write in complete sentences to make sure that your answer answers the question. Because if you have something here like the area is 706 squared feet, well, that doesn't answer the question. So our answer is 2 gallons would be needed to paint the entire back of the house. All right, if you need a second, go ahead and take those notes. We are about to move on. All right, question number 3. Tanner is spray painting an arrow on the side of a building to point to the entrance of his store. The can of gold spray paint he wants to use covers up to 12 square feet. Does Tanner have enough spray paint for his arrow? So now that you've done 3 examples, or now that you've got 3 examples, so 1, 2, 3 examples of how to find composite area, this part you are doing on your own. So you are going to find the area of Tanner's arrow. Look at it. What shapes do you notice? All right. And you are also, I'm going to move us forward along too. You are also going to attempt this on your own as well. So it says determine the area of the shaded region in each figure. Show your work. So you're just determining the area of the blue shaded part. So again, you can do it 2 ways. You can find the total area of that shape and subtract, or you can simply just find the area of those shaded shapes by decomposing and then adding it together. All right, I'm going to leave that decision up to you, but I'm going to let you know at this time, I want you to set a timer for, and it's okay if you don't finish everything, but I want you to work diligently, making sure that you're getting the most out of this. You're setting a timer for about 10 minutes on the clock to complete questions 3, 4, and 5, making sure to show all of your work and keep it organized. That's the key here. That is the key, y'all. I can't stress that enough. Keeping it organized is the key. And then do this with a partner, being that this is something that we're still developing our skills with. So 3, 4, and 5, you've got 10 minutes on the clock, work with a partner and find the area of those composite shapes, excuse me. All right, pause here. All right, now that you've had time to work, let's review our answers. For number 3, you should have calculated the total area of the rectangle and the triangle. You should have gotten 10 and 2/3. Sorry, I forgot something. Feet squared. I'm just noticing. Feet squared for the rectangle and 1 feet squared or 1 foot squared for the triangle. So, does he have enough spray paint? Well, the can of gold covers up, here we go. The can of gold spray paint covers 12 square feet. And if this sign is only, when we add those up, we get 11 and 2/3 feet squared. The answer is yes, Tanner does have enough spray paint. Alrighty, moving forward. For number 4, it says determine the area of the shaded region. What I simply did, you could have done it differently. You could have done it Naveed's way, but I did it Wanda's way. I went ahead and decomposed those 2 shaded figures into a triangle and a trapezoid when you turn it sideways. And I found that the triangle was 4 inches squared, the trapezoid was 6 inches squared, and in total, that is 10 inches squared. So nice and pretty with those whole numbers. And then for number 5, this one was a little bit more difficult because you had to figure out, how do I even break this down? Do I find the area of the squares in the center, or do I find the area of the triangles? For me, I found it was easier to subtract the triangles. So the total area of that square, when I multiplied all of those measurements, base times height, 12 times 12, that gives me, oh, I just noticed I didn't write the formulas here. I apologize. Make sure to write the formulas. But you should have gotten 144 as the total area of that square. The smaller squares I highlighted in red, those are in the corners. The base and the height of those are labeled clearly in the corner. That is 3 and 3. So 1/2 times base times height times 4 of those gives us 18 centimeters squared when you multiply 4 times 3 times 3 times 1/2. And then for the larger triangles in purple, the base was 6 and the height, again, was 3. So 1/2 times the base times the height times 4 triangles gives you 36 centimeters squared. When you take those triangles away from your total square, you get the area of the shaded area is 90 centimeters squared. And that is your final answer. Alrighty, that concludes the learning for this lesson. For this activity on finding the area of composite shapes. I will see you in the next video.